3 o'clock Central, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Eileen Daniel. I do work for AEDSuperstore, and I'm very excited today to take some time with some reps from Defibtech who are going to tell you a little bit more about the Lifeline View AED. Before we get started, in order to get the best experience from this webinar, we recommend that at the top of your screen, you're going to see how you can view. It has viewing options, and we recommend you put it on View Who's Talking. That'll make sure that when we have the presentation up, you'll see the presentation, and when Defibtech is doing their live demonstration, you'll be able to see that as well. If you are calling in by phone, we ask that you press *6 so that you are muted. We find this leads to less confusion, less chatter. It's just easier to hear everyone. If you join by video, we ask that you turn your video off. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and you can put them right into the live chat at any time. If you have questions that you'd like to ask anonymously, you can send them directly to me. We are going to be doing a raffle, but we'd like you to stay on to the end of the demonstration in order to be eligible. So if you don't stay till the end, you're not eligible to win. It's been, the last demonstration we did was this morning, and it lasted about half an hour. So we're not going to keep you on too long, and you're going to get a lot of great information in the meantime.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today and taking the time to learn these life-saving skills. My name is Mike Papale, and I am the Manager of Community Relations here at Defibtech.
My name is Peyton White, and I'm a Field Sales Representative here with Defibtech.
Awesome. So before we get into the live demo and talk about the chain of survival, we just want to tell you a little bit about Defibtech and some of the work that we do. So we are a leader and innovator in the design and manufacture of life-saving resuscitation devices. Our medical technology devices provide easy-to-use resuscitation equipment. Public safety, healthcare providers, and bystanders depend on our products every single day. We are owned by a leading international medical device manufacturer, Neon Coden, and we are committed to designing and creating products that help communities around the world respond to sudden cardiac arrest. And you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So our mission here at Defibtech is to increase survival from sudden cardiac arrest. So in addition to deploying our life-saving products all over the world, we also partner with some nonprofits throughout the United States whose missions are very similar to ours. So starting with the Corey Stringer Institute, their mission is to provide research, education, advocacy, and consultation to maximize performance, optimize safety, and prevent sudden death for the athlete, warfighter, and laborer. Parent Heart Watch, who is the only national voice solely dedicated to preventing youth from sudden cardiac arrest and preventable sudden cardiac death. The Citizen CPR Foundation, whose mission is to save lives from sudden cardiac arrest by stimulating effective community, professional, and citizen action. And finally, the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, whose vision is to eliminate preventable death and disability from sudden cardiac arrest. So part of the reason why I'm so passionate about AEDs and the work we do here at Defibtech is because I've been personally affected in my life, and I'm excited to share that story with you today. So when I was growing up, I was a very healthy, athletic guy. Never really thought I had anything wrong with me. Went to the doctor, every year for my physical and walked out, and the doctor always said I looked great and to keep doing everything that I was doing. So there was no signs or symptoms that could potentially think that I could have something wrong with my heart or be affected by sudden cardiac arrest. My goal was to play basketball in college, and I was training at a very high level and a very intense level. And again, nothing really stood out to my family or my doctors to think that something could be wrong. In between my junior and senior year of high school in 2006, I had spent the summer traveling all over the Northeast, playing in different showcase events to try to get recruited to play basketball. And at the end of the summer, the week before school started, my brother and I, we were both counselors at my dad's basketball camp. And on Wednesday night, we decided that the next morning we were going to wake up early, and we were going to do a basketball workout before camp started. So that next morning, August 24th, 2006, we woke up at like 6 a.m. One of our friends came and picked us up and brought us over to a local gym where we did a basketball workout for about an hour and a half, and it was completely fine. I can remember the workout to this day. Nothing stood out. Nothing was out of the ordinary. We went through it and didn't seem like anything was going to be different that day. After the workout ended, we went over to the local Parks and Recreation Center where the basketball camp was being held, and we walked in at about 8 a.m. And I remember changing my shirt and saying hi to my dad, and I don't remember anything else from that day. So for 2.5 hours, I was a typical camp counselor, coaching kids, refereeing games, putting the kids through drills, and I don't remember any of it. But at 10:30, I was sitting on the bleachers, and my best friend was sitting right next to me, and my brother was running up and down the court refereeing the game. And I just kind of face planted onto the ground out of nowhere, and nobody really knew what was going on. My friend actually came up to me and kicked me and asked me to stop messing around, but I was in sudden cardiac arrest. And like you're going to learn shortly, when someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest, it's critical that CPR is started immediately and an AED is used quickly. Unfortunately, in my situation, nobody did CPR because nobody expected that it could be something that was wrong with my heart. Again, because I was, a healthy young guy. And the building that I was in did not have an automated external defibrillator in it. So those two factors made my odds to survive very slim. I did get lucky because somebody called 911, and there was a guy next door, and he was sitting at his desk working on his computer, and he was a volunteer EMT. So when the call went through to 911, he got the call on his pager, and he recognized the address, and he came over. He found me on the ground, agonal gasping, and he started performing CPR on me as quickly as he could. And he performed CPR for a significant amount of time. And then eventually an ambulance came, and they ran in with a defibrillator, and they shocked my heart and eventually got a normal rhythm back. But without that man providing, a really, really good CPR, and without the shock from the defibrillator, I definitely would not be here today. That's why, the skills that you're going to learn today are very important. I was later diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy after a few days in the hospital, which is a genetic heart condition. It had never affected me at all in my life, but unfortunately, one of the symptoms and the scariest symptom is sudden cardiac arrest, and it struck that day. And without CPR and AED, I definitely would not be here today. Next slide. Cool. So now we're going to bring on Peyton, and Peyton's going to talk to you about the very important 6 links in the sudden cardiac arrest chain of survival.
All right, hello guys. So just to build on to Mike's story, he really pointed out how important it is to not only have access to an AED, but use it as quickly as you can in the event of sudden cardiac arrest. So we wanted to point out the 6 links in the sudden cardiac arrest chain of survival. As you can see on the slide, half of that, so the 3 out of the 6 steps there all involve having an AED. Essentially. So you want to call 911 first, begin CPR, and then use a defibrillator. So I wanted to share some statistics that the chances of survival significantly increase if you use an AED within 3 minutes of sudden cardiac arrest. And then the chances of survival actually decrease by 10% every minute that passes without an AED. So it's critical that you get an AED used as quickly as possible. And then while you're waiting for EMS to arrive, you'll be putting that to use. And then of course, once they arrive, the victim can get that advanced resuscitation, post cardiac arrest care, and then ultimately recovery. So for the next slide, we're going to bring up some specifications of our Lifeline View AED. This is our most innovative AED. So it's actually the first AED with full motion color video display. After this, I'm going to end up taking you guys through a live demo, but I want to do that without interruptions so that you guys can see how simple it is and how quick it is to use. But for now, I'm just going to point out some of the major features of this AED. So really the most prominent is, of course, this screen that you see on the AED. So it's not just giving you voice or audible instructions, it's actually showing you those instructions step by step. It's going to switch between those rescue protocols on demand as you need to go through them. So that's extra helpful for kind of a loud, noisy environment like warehouse, manufacturing, where you may not be able to hear those instructions whenever you need to use it in a rescue, or a multilingual environment such as an airport. If not everybody speaks English, then they will hopefully be able to follow along with the video instructions. So as I mentioned, this does have that real-time visual assistance during the rescue, including either hands-only CPR or CPR with rescue breaths. You have the option to switch between those. It also gives CPR coaching through a metronome that's in the AED that's going to go with you to be sure that you're on the correct rhythm of your CPR. Then I wanted to just note the easy status check. If you notice on that photo, there's 3 black soft keys next to the screen. On that center soft key, if you have one of these AEDs, you can just click that and you'll get a quick status screen update on this screen. That's going to show you everything from your serial number, your battery life, or excuse me, your battery expiration date, your pad expiration date. Be sure that you know what's going on your device. But in addition to that, the device is also doing daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly self-checks. So if there is anything that needs to be attended to on the unit, there's a little light next to the power button that's going to be blinking red, and it's going to beep at you. So it'll continue to beep at you until you give it the attention that it needs. So easy to maintain. So after all of that, as I mentioned, I wanted to take you guys through a full live demo. I'm not going to do the talking here. I'm going to let the AED do that for us and just kind of take you through the full step. All you have to do is start by pressing this top power button, and from there it's going to show you exactly what to do. So we will let it go.
Training mode. Call for help. Follow instructions to apply pads. Remove clothing from patient's chest. Locate pads package in back of AED. Tear open pads package. Peel pads from blue liner. Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown. Remove clothing from patient's chest. Locate pads package in back of AED. Tear open pads package. Peel pads from blue liner. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Stand clear. Shock advised. Charging. Press flashing shock button. Shock 1 delivered. It is safe to touch the patient. Begin CPR now. Give compressions. Powering off.
All right, so that was it. So a few things to note here. One, if you noticed, the AED was kind of going through a continuous loop while I was applying pads. It moves with you, and it is able to recognize once you've placed those pads, and it will then go into analyzing the patient. So it'll wait for you so that you don't have to worry about rushing and missing the next step. So that's really great. Second, you'll notice at the very end there, I kind of let it run just for a little bit so that you could hear that metronome for the CPR coaching. Essentially, if I didn't turn that off, it would just keep going through the duration of the CPR that needs to be given, and then it would continuously analyze the patient. And if it recognizes that the patient needs another shock, then it's going to let you know. And you'll just continue that process. Just listen to the AED until EMS arrives. So that was it. Now that we've kind of thrown a lot at you, we wanted to offer up any questions that you guys might have. It can be about anything, our company, Mike and his story, or, you know, of course, our units or anything like that.
I did get one question directly to me, and the person wants to know what happens if they shock someone who doesn't need a shock.
Yeah, great question. Mike and I are going to switch off a little bit here, so I'll let him take it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, great question. So, like Peyton said, one of the great things about AEDs is how easy they are to use. And the reason why we want to have them everywhere is because anyone can really use them. So if there's anything that you take away from this when using an AED, just remember to turn it on and don't be afraid to use it. And the reason for that is when the pads are placed, you heard the machine say analyzing. The AED is able to analyze heart rhythms and determine if the person that's on the ground has a shockable rhythm or not. And if they do not have a shockable rhythm, the machine is not even going to charge and allow you to deliver a shock. So if you press the shock button over and over again without the machine feeling that there's or analyzing a shockable rhythm, the machine is not going to deliver a shock. So you do not need to be afraid of using it on somebody that might not need it. The machine will only deliver a shock if it analyzes that a person needs one to help save their life.
Okay. Someone has a question about the trainer. We noticed that you're using the trainer there. It's got the red sides rather than the black sides, so it's obvious to know it's not going to actually give a shock. And he says, on the trainer, if the student does not press the button, will it automatically reset to analyze, or will it go into doing the 2 minutes of CPR? So if they don't press the flashing shock button, I'm imagining is the question.
Well, no. So if the trainer's set in the mode, which ours is to tell you to deliver a shock, it's going to keep telling you to press the flashing shock button until that button is pushed. Once that button is pushed, what's going to happen is it's going to go into 2 minutes of CPR mode. And at the end of 2 minutes, just like a regular AED, it's going to count you down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop CPR, stop now, and it's going to analyze and determine if a second shock is needed. So it's going to continue to tell you to hit shock until that shock button is pushed, just like a real unit would.
Great. Another question I got directly to me, what other AEDs do you sell besides the View?
Cool. We're going to bring Peyton back on to answer that question.
I feel like we're in Wheel of Fortune. So yes, as we discussed, I was using the Lifeline View today, which is the one with the screen. We also have our just regular Lifeline, which is offered as semi-automatic and also automatic. So it looks just like this, essentially the same, just without that screen on it. As you can see, it's still incredibly easy to use. You just have to press that power button, kind of as Mike said, and then the AED will tell you the rest. So the biggest difference between our semi-automatic and automatic is this one is the automatic. There's no red button, so the AED will just automatically shock the patient for you if it's needed. And then our semi-automatic will have that shock button that requires you to press it, just like our View did. There's really not one that's better than the other. It's completely up to the end user's preference. We've just found that there has been, through some research, there has been some hesitation in somebody pressing that shock button because they're worried about, hurting the patient. But again, as we discussed, if the AED recognizes that there is a shock that needs to be given, then you need to press, give the shock. So totally up to you if you prefer one or the other.
I was going to say, does the View come with an automatic version or only semi-automatic?
The View only comes semi-automatic, but another one that I forgot to mention is our Lifeline ECG, which is essentially the View, or it looks like the View, but it also has a feature, it's more for EMS use, where you can actually see an ECG reading on the screen if you'd like, but otherwise it works just like a View.
We have a question here. It says, which AED model do you recommend for places with children, like schools?
Sure. I'll let Mike chime in if he thinks he has something else, but I would say any of them are good for schools. You would just want to be sure that you do have the pediatric pads. So all of these units do have 2 separate pads. There's adult pads and there's pediatric pads. So, you know, we would really recommend having pediatric pads as an option anywhere, but of course, especially for schools.
Someone wants to know, what is the battery life?
Sure, great question. So on the Lifeline and the Lifeline Auto, we actually have 2 separate options. There's a 5-year and a 7-year option. And then for the Lifeline View, it's a 4-year battery life.
Heather wants to know, does it know the difference between a child or adult based on which pad you use?
Yes. So it all depends on, here, I'll show you on this one. So the pads, well, the pads get placed in this back pocket and they're plugged in on the top here. So they plug in like this. If you have a pediatric patient, which we consider 8 years and under, then you would want to plug in your pediatric pads. So maybe this is something you would want to consider if you are at a school, you would automatically have the pediatric pads plugged in, but you always want to have some pads plugged in so that it's ready for a rescue if needed. So to answer your question a little bit more directly, yes, it will recognize if you have the pediatric pads plugged in, then it will know that. And on the View, it will switch to, you know, the placement of those pads and whatnot.
Let's see. Lowell would like to know what type of batteries they use.
Yeah, so they're a 9-volt lithium battery.
And those are specially made for the AEDs.
Correct, yes.
Those were some great questions, everybody.
Those are good questions.
All right. Well, it says, when do you need to put in new batteries?
So as I mentioned, there's different battery expiration dates depending on which AED you decide to purchase. So you would just want to replace those batteries at the point of expiration. As I mentioned earlier, just with the overall maintenance of an AED, the AED will tell you whenever it's time to replace that battery. On the View, you can either check the status screen or it will blink red and it'll beep at you to let you know that there's an issue, and then you can check on it that way. Same thing with the Lifeline and the Lifeline Auto. It has that blinking light, so it'll also tell you if there's something wrong, if you need to change pads or battery.
All right. Is either AED water resistant?
Yeah, great question. So the Lifeline View is, it's got an IP rating of 5.5, which means it can handle like a water jet, whereas the Lifeline and the Lifeline Auto has an IP rating of 5.4, so it's more of like a splash or a spray, if you will. So this one has a slightly less rating for, you know, water specifically. It is okay to be used, for example, if it's at a pool and if it's, you know, laying in a wet surface, you know, that's okay. You don't want to completely submerge it underwater, but they are built to military specifications. So they're good to be used in lots of environments.
Great. Do we have any more questions for Peyton or for Mike?
Let's give Mike one. No, I'm kidding. These are great questions, guys.
All right. Well, it looks like that is into the demonstration. Right now, AEDSuperstore does have a special going on Defibtech AEDs, and you can save up to $300 on any Defibtech AED or AED value package, and you can take advantage of that by visiting AEDSuperstore.com. And the winner of the Lifeline AED is Heather Gallant. So Heather, what we'd love you to do is just hang on the line here and we'll get your contact information so we can get that shipped out to you. We definitely want to thank everyone for coming and spending some time today and learning a little bit more about the Defibtech AEDs. If you have any other questions, maybe we didn't get to today, you can always call our customer care team at 800-544-0048. They're very knowledgeable about AEDs. Or you can reach out to them at info@aeds.com. If you'd like to reach Defibtech, you can call them at 866-333-4248 or reach out to them via email at info@defibtech.com. Thank you again, Mike and Peyton, and we look forward to more webinars in the future with Defibtech.
Thanks, everybody.